Hi there. Have you been? Were you here to see what I had for dinner? See the full Air India business class experience? Or perhaps you're here to get a tour of the beautiful Newark Liberty Airport. Oh, you're here to hear about the identity theft. Okay, I gotcha. Well, here's the thing. I'm not allowed to curse in the first 30 seconds of the video. So as we head to Terminal B for my flight to Mumbai, just bear with me for just a couple. 3, 2, 1. Air India needs to get their shit together. Let me just say two things quickly and clearly. The identity theft or fraud or whatever you would like to call it that I'm referencing has nothing to do with the channel. I don't mean that they found me out or something. That's not what I'm complaining about. I'm talking about good old-fashioned identity theft, where someone or something takes your personal private data and does stuff with it. The second point is, I'm on the consumer side of this crap flying from 9 different directions. It's frankly impossible for me to know the entire story, though I assure you I have tried. So in today's video, I'm going to quite simply tell you exactly what happened, and the order that it happened in, and then you can decide if this is all a big coincidence, or if this is a serious problem at Air India when it comes to them protecting the personal and private data of their passengers. Or dear passengers, as they would say. As always, you're going to get a full trip report for my trip to Mumbai. But before we get into that, let me welcome any of you that may be new to the channel. My name is Kevin, and I am the Flip Flop Traveler. I'm here to give you 2 new videos each week about flights, hotels, and trains, and I promise you only 3 things. You'll always see the exact price that I paid in the description. I didn't alert Air India beforehand that I'd be filming on this flight. And most importantly, all you're going to hear today is my own honest opinion, based on my oh-so-unique experience. So without further ado, let's get into it because I'm kind of excited. As we go through the airport experience, I'm going to try to bring you up to speed as efficiently as I can. 1.5 to 2 days before my flight, I checked in online. As is usual, I received 2 boarding passes, which you can see here. The only thing to take note of is on this email boarding pass, it has my Air Canada Aeroplan number on the boarding pass. If this was an episode of Law & Order, I do believe this is what they would refer to as the smoking gun. I should mention, this was an Aeroplan points ticket, so there would be no points or miles earned on this flight. For that reason, very specifically, at the time, I wasn't paying attention to the frequent flyer number on the ticket, as I normally would if I was collecting points or status or the like. While SAS will soon be leaving Star Alliance for SkyTeam, their lounge is still available for all Star Alliance business class passengers from Terminal B at Newark. Quite a few of them since the Lufthansa lounges were under renovation. I'd been in this lounge once before around 6 years ago, and while things still looked decent, the food on offer this time was much more limited. On the day of the flight, I got to the airport, and as always, when possible, I got a printout of my boarding pass since I collect all of them. I had no check-in baggage. I did ask about a first-class upgrade, just curious about the price, but the cabin was full. And very quickly, I had my new boarding pass in hand. My next video coming out is of a flight on Air India's brand new A350. So in that video, I'll get into what is currently going on with Air India's so-called transformation. For today, I'll just mention how Air India in the past year has amassed a small collection of long-haul aircraft from other airlines. The very reason that I booked this flight was because it was originally meant to be on one of the ex-Delta 777s with the Delta One suites with doors. At some point, the aircraft was changed to one of the ex-Etihad 777s. This was fine. As long as they didn't give me one of the original infamous Air India 777s, I'd be perfectly happy. Our original departure time was 12:05, with a posted delay to 12:46. I didn't know about the delay and got to the gate at 10:50, to find the boarding had already been going on for quite some time. Boarding 2 hours before pushback is a uniquely Air India pet peeve of mine. As we head down the jet bridge, let's take a look at today's flight stats. Get settled in, and then continue the story. I was greeted as I stepped on board and shown to my seat. In the first few minutes, the purser and the flight attendant who would take care of me came by and introduced themselves. These ex-Etihad birds have 10 rows of staggered business class in a 1-to-1 configuration split between 2 cabins. Considering the length of today's flight, I was more than happy to get 5 Alpha, which I think is surely the best business class seat on this plane. Up front in the mini cabin of 2 rows and a true window seat. Plus you get loads of open space in front of you to reorganize your bags or something, since the seat could serve as a bassinet seat. I'll let you have a look around this ex-Etihad seat, which was more than comfortable for the 15 hours to Mumbai. For the most part, the seats were in good condition, and the surfaces and surrounds were clean as well. The only differences that I could see were the 2 very Air India pillows at each seat. At this point, I was thinking this was going pretty well. Perhaps one of the reasons why Air India likes to board so early is all of the pre-departure procedures are quite a production, when it's just not necessary. Having a pajama trolley, for example. Pre-departure drinks, only orange juice or apple juice, hot towels, amenity kits, menus and the like were also passed out. It was on autoplay. I was multitasking. I was feeding my dog. I was doom scrolling. These are all real reasons why I often forget to click the like button on videos that I actually did appreciate existing. So, anytime a video creator has a click the like button on this video and subscribe to the channel call to action, I'm sure to do it in that moment. Because mark my words, I will forget. Grassroots support is what keeps channels going, much more so than any algorithm ever could. We pushed back, and a manual safety demonstration was performed for some reason. Strange that the demo wasn't performed for first class, but that is a can of worms that I'm not going to open today. Despite all of this drama, it was a gorgeous day for flying in the New York area, with the skyline in perfect view. As we were taxiing, one of the flight attendants came over and said what I thought at the time was, quote, "As one of our returning privilege members, I'd like to take your order now to ensure you can choose your preference," unquote. In retrospect now, I know he said, "As one of our returns privilege members." Flying Returns is the name of their loyalty program, which I simply did not know at the time. Regardless of what he said specifically though, that's when I started to get confused. Whether I knew their program name or not, I certainly know that I wasn't a privileged member of Air India in any way. I looked at my boarding pass. And that's when I started thinking, why is there an Air India Flying Returns number on my boarding pass? I certainly didn't create it or attach it, ever. Honestly, at the time, my best guess was that Air India somehow knew that I booked this flight and made a Flying Returns account to attach to my ticket so that maybe they could communicate with the crew who I was? I'm still not even sure how absurd that sounds or not, but it was the only thought that I could think of at the time. I wasn't really considering nefarious motives in the moment. Part of me was thinking this because I had been contacted by Air India on 2 occasions prior. I mean specifically that this channel was contacted by them, via the email address on my YouTube page, which I get all kinds of emails and offers on. They were reaching out to possibly do a collaboration with the channel. I politely declined. This was most recently in March of this year. There was no indication at any point that they knew who I was, as in my actual identity. While I still had cell service on the ground, I tried to somehow log into the Air India account number. But since it had never been set up for an online login, the website said I needed to call. Okay. Much more to come, but first we do need to actually fly somewhere. So, the spool up, takeoff, and airport stats are coming up now. Minutes after takeoff, I was brought out the glass of wine that I ordered with a ramekin of warm nuts. Let's have a quick look at some of the comfort items. The tray table is solid as a rock and comes down from the seat back in front of you. Conveniently, it can pivot out of the way so you can sneak out during mealtime. There were 2 pillows. First is the flimsy gold lame pillow, and then the much more substantial and fairly crisp full-size pillow. Neither pillow was sealed, but both seemed fairly freshly laundered. The first of 2 blankets was thin and a bit scratchy and was at the seat in a paper package. Last up, we had the slippers, which I did appreciate for being big enough for my feet. The meal service was set to begin soon after flying over Boston Logan. But let me get you through a bit of the story first. I put contacting Air India on my list of things to do when I got home, which was around 2 weeks later. I didn't want to ask the crew on board for fear of making these 15 hours really awkward. This flight, by the way, was in June of this year, 2024. On July 7th, I sent one of those email contact requests for information on Air India's website. I didn't mention anything nefarious, I simply asked for instructions of how I could access my Flying Returns account online. On July 10th, I got this email in reply. They gave me the email address and phone number associated with my Flying Returns account, an Indian phone number, and an email domain that I didn't recognize. After searching around about it, apparently this is a common source of temporary email addresses to use for fraudulent activity. Oh joy. As soon as I could that same day, I called the Air India contact center. The person who I spoke with for 16 minutes was friendly and trying to help, but couldn't quite get the gist of my questions as to the origins of the account. So my goal turned simply to finding out as much information as I could. In order to speak to me about my account, he needed to verify it, which I was able to do with the email and phone number that they emailed to me. Running a really tight ship here. Originally, his very casual explanation as to the reason all of this happened was simply because someone was probably trying to steal the points that I would have earned on that flight. He said this as casually as I would say that it's gonna rain this afternoon. My impression was, well, I don't think that's what happened in my case, but it definitely sounds like that happens a lot for him to be so casual with it. I tried to dig deeper, and when I suggested, gently, that someone at Air India, officially or otherwise, attach this account to my ticket without my knowledge, he then suggested that Air Canada was the one that did it. After that, he started to question who I gave my record locator number to, and started to imply that somehow it was through my carelessness that this happened. On the call, I confirmed that the account was opened 1 day prior to my flight, that my birthday was on the account, and that there was no address associated with it. I didn't think of it at the time, but later it occurred to me that my passport number and known traveler number had to also be associated with that account, since my second boarding pass worked when I passed through TSA PreCheck. I asked for an email address to escalate the issue, and I was given 2 of them. Let's take a break for lunch. Here's the full menu and bar list for the flight. Note that the red prices are my addition to the graphic. They're the current retail prices per bottle, just to give you an idea of the wine value on board. I started off with the grilled Mexican prawns with ripe avocado and orange tartare, as opposed to cooked, with arugula and green tomato salsa. This was actually a good start to the meal. The prawns were heavily spiced, and I wouldn't really call it Mexican, but it was good. For the main dish, I had murg achari, described as, quote, succulent dices of chicken cooked with aromatic spices in a mild pickle-flavored cream sauce, served with pulao, tempered cauliflower and potatoes, tossed with mild spices, pigeon peas, and whole black lentil stew, with tomatoes and onions, and cucumber and yogurt raita, unquote. And just noticing now that I never got my raita. This was interesting. It's normally a dish that I would love, but something about it just felt off. The texture of the chicken dish was especially odd and grainy. That was followed up with a dessert trolley with a choice of Indian dumplings, fresh fruit, or opera cake. I chose the cake, which looked like it had been wrapped in saran wrap for hours, as did that strawberry, frozen and then wrapped and then unwrapped and then plated. As for the cheese, the Swiss cheese in that little dish was so dried out, like it's been left out for a few days, I'm not kidding at all, that the edges of it were like the blade of a knife. More on all of this food stuff later. Before we get back to the story, let's look at the entertainment and a really good amenity kit. The headphones on offer were okay sound quality wise, but did little in the way of noise cancellation. Entertainment on board left quite a bit to be desired. The worst part for me though was that there was no moving map. The amenity kit though is truly a standout, and considering what their old pre-Tata amenity kit looked like, this one is a massive upgrade. It's a hard-sided black Tume case with Malin & Goetz products inside. There's also an eye mask and socks, and surprisingly enough, even a blank leather patch, so that you can get your case monogrammed after the fact if you'd like. Okay, let's do a quick catch-up. So, the same day that I called, I emailed the addresses that I was given, told that they were higher-level addresses. I sent my questions and concerns. That same day, a generic Air India address replied to me, saying that it would take a few days, but they would shut down the account. At that point, I was more worried about what of my info had been out there. So I replied saying that I'm not so concerned about the account being closed today, I want to find out what actually happened first. I got crickets. Then things got messy. The next day, one of my other airline frequent flyer accounts was hacked into. I saw it happen in real time, getting an email saying that I had just logged into my account, which I hadn't. It was not Air Canada or Air India, and it was an account that I use frequently. The two things that I would point out, this is the only airline that I know of that uses a passenger's passport number for their account number. Also, the email address associated with that account was the same one associated with my Air India ticket. Just a couple of days after that, one of my credit cards was fraudulently added to someone's Apple Pay and 5 charges were made. Mind you, you need to verify every card when adding it to Apple Pay. My bank for that card lets you choose a call, a text message, or to call them. Clearly, whoever took this card called my bank since I didn't get a call or a text, and then they proceeded to convince my bank that they were me with some pieces of my personal information. Of course, that card was then canceled and all fraud reported. The very next day, another of my credit cards was attempted to be added to someone's Apple Pay, but was blocked. This was a different bank. I emailed Air India again, saying I was still waiting for a reply and somewhat vaguely noting the fraudulent activity that had taken place since the moment they claimed to be closing my account. Some days later, I got this reply, saying the account being added to my ticket was a technical glitch. So I asked them if the actual creation of the account, in my name, with my birthday, known traveler number, and more, was also a technical glitch. They replied and apologized for the inconvenience. This video and the next one I had planned to publish out of order even before any of this stuff happened. These are two videos which could quickly become irrelevant. This one because it's on an Etihad aircraft, and the next one because it's on a brand new A350. All of this fraud stuff just pulled the date up closer. But of course, before I were to say anything publicly about any of this, I want to make sure that I cover all of my bases and know everything that I could possibly know. One thing I didn't know the answer to was this. After I checked in, would it be possible for someone outside of Air India, someone that stole my record locator number, for example, to access my ticket and change the frequent flyer account on my ticket? For what reason, I have no idea, but just, was it possible? So a couple weeks ago, I bought a flight, Bengaluru to Chennai for $23, ironically also on the A350. When online check-in opened, I checked in, just like a normal flight. To do my best to not compromise more of my accounts, I added my United account when booking because it's one that I never use. You can see it here on the boarding pass that was emailed to me. And now the test. Can I log into my reservation as myself, the passenger, and change my frequent flyer number after checking in? The answer is a big fat no. From the website, from the app, from the mobile website. Once you're checked in, the passenger, or anyone outside of Air India, cannot change the frequent flyer account. Only Air India can. So I do hope that you enjoyed that sunset, because now it is time for a truly awful meal. This meal came out somewhere halfway through the flight, and honestly, I'm still a bit confused by it. Originally, they came around to ask me for my order from the refreshments page, and I gave my order. Then they came through again with a different meal. In fact, the crew asked for my order 4 times for this meal, from 3 different crew. This was an appetizer of aloo chana chaat, which was old and dry, the only way I can describe it. The assortment of other things on the plate: a chicken sandwich, classic Malai fish tikka, beetroot raisin tiki, and a blueberry and lemon cheesecake. There is not a single thing on that tray that I'd consider feeding to an enemy. My single onboard note for this meal was, quote, "Weird plate of food. The fish was very creamy, but not in a Malai way, in a slimy expired way," unquote. This more or less began to confirm my prior suspicion, that at least some of the food on this flight was not catered in Newark. I know this sounds absurd. It's disgusting to even suggest. But if I'm correct, and I think I am, I think the prawns and the fresh fruit were from Newark. Maybe the bread as well. And the rest? I think it came from Mumbai. In case you're considering this wonderful experience for yourself, allow me to show you the full flat bed, which was actually pretty comfortable. There was a seat cover, which surprisingly fit this seat since they only have a couple of these planes, as well as a much more substantial blanket. Allow me to thank you for your patience and conclude Fraudulent Storytime with Kevin. Here's a full recap of the timeline. I will simply tell you what I know and what I don't know. I know that an account was fraudulently made in my name, and I know that that account was then attached to my ticket without my consent. In my experience, technical glitches don't generally happen in pairs, so I know this was not a technical glitch. I also know that when I checked in, my Air Canada number was on my boarding pass. I also know that once you check in, it is impossible for the passenger to change the frequent flyer number without Air India's assistance. So I know that Air India, whether on purpose, via negligence, or via a rogue employee, misused my personal data, or allow it to be stolen for that stupid frequent flyer number. I also know multiple pieces of my personal private information were accessible to whoever misused that data. You may be thinking, as I was honestly, well, I guess every airline employee has access to lots of data like that. But here's the difference. You're not supposed to steal it. When I was a 17-year-old cashier, I had access to a lot of cash every day, but I didn't steal it. What I don't know exactly how the rest is all connected or if it's connected. But that is one hell of a series of events to happen one day after another, and I'm going to leave it at that. Final meal as we approach India. Now the refreshments. Remember my not so kind comments about the last meal? Okay, multiply that by 7. My notes. Quote, "Kebabs were so salty that they burned. Cucumber, actually raw zucchini, sandwich had bread that was so stale it was sharp." Unquote. I did not eat. When they came to collect the plates, I asked the flight attendant a question, pointing to the sandwich. "Was this from Mumbai?" You know that look that people give you? Their head tilts ever so slightly to one side. Their eyebrows lift just a bit, and their face scrunches, and you can tell the only thing that they're thinking is, "Oh, for the love of God, don't ask me that." Him giving me that expression was my answer. I forget who said it, Air India or Vistara, but at some point early on in this whole merger process, one of them said they would operate as different brands until Air India was operating at the same level as Vistara. Something like that. So, my flying on Air India is on a hard pause until that integration happens. Only then will they be telling the world that they actually fully trust and have pride in their own operations. Ironically, I still have 3 more Air India videos coming out. My next video was a fantastic flight on board their A350. plus 2 other flights coming out in the coming months as part of my Kangaroo Route series. After those, no more for a while. Sure of that. All of that being said, if there is someone from Air India that would like to tell me how this happened, or just what actually happened, I'm all ears. I'm pretty sure you can figure out how to contact me. We approached the airport from the east and landed and taxied without incident. I beg of you, no matter what airline you fly, please be as careful as you can with your personal data. It is literally like the wild, wild west out there these days. The last few weeks for me have been absolute hell, dealing with the compromised accounts and cards, but worse yet, simply not knowing what information is actually out there, and if or when the next thing will happen. Quick note about this video's score, or lack thereof. I know in the past I've tried to present fair and balanced and use the penalty score system for cases like this, etc, etc. But in today's case, I cannot wrap my head around saying, hey, it seems like they stole my identity, but I want to be fair and give them an 81. I'm not sure enjoyment is what I wanted you to get out of this video, but I do hope that it provided a bit of insight, both into what the actual state of flying on Air India long haul is like right now, as well as what a mess their back-end operations seem to be. It's time for Tata to completely clean house and step up. They only have one chance to remake Air India, and if this is how it's looking 18 months into the process, I can't say that I'm overly hopeful for the future. So, please like this video and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss my twice weekly videos. I'll see you next time on the A350. Thanks as always for watching until the end.